Okay, so hopefully that gave everybody a little flavor for GE and the division from which I came. I think the video there definitely sums it up a lot better than I could probably communicate to you. My name is Don Perigo, Chief Enterprise Architect for GE Power Services IT. Hope you don't expect professional speakers. I'm just an IT guy, so just please take it easy on me. I'm not a demo kind of guy myself. A little background about our deployment, and then we'll kind of show you how we got here. So it's kind of like reading the last page of a spy novel, right? So we're with Power Services, and what we do is the gas turbines that you were kind of seeing there. We maintenance and repair them. For those industrials in the room, hopefully a lot of that resonated with you. So with our big data deployment, our strategy has really been to kind of get it into the hands of the employees so that everybody can question what's going on, can find insights, and to get benefit. Currently, we are not done scaling, but right now we're right around just short of 35,000 users hitting the platform continuously. About 702 of those are desktop developers, but we do have web authoring turned on. And with our data strategy, you're going to see there that we have about 120 applications stitched up into our platform right now. But in the other corner here, you're going to see that about 70 of those main pillar applications, those IT systems, are streaming in real time. So we do have a policy that we do want to stream everything unless there's a technical reason we couldn't do so. And as an organization with lots of acquisitions and lots of legacy, you're probably not going to be too surprised that some of our systems might be pre-internet. And having them join the big data and having them join the industrial, the digital industrial has been a challenge, but we do have to get through that. And so a lot of those are batch-type integrations where we just don't have that capability. And for those that are subscribers to Postmodern ERP, our big data platform does transcend across 9 different ERPs so that we can have a single feel and a single understanding of how our business is operating. So let's take us back in time to around 2012. Let's go even further back. After the earth cooled and the dinosaurs went away, I first graduated from college with my expertise in BI. Over the years, I'd always understood and appreciated the value that BI was going to deliver, but the speed at which we could deliver in IT never really caught up to the demands from the business. And it was extremely frustrating because on one side I can see what's constantly possible, what's going to be there someday, and then out of that frustration and inability to deliver, we kind of fast forward to 2012, and we looked around and we saw what was going on in the business. We would see lots of people that used what was called the BI system, and what they were doing with it was a glorified ETL, right? Or they were just putting Excel on a web page, and the only point of that was to, again, find a cheap way to get data down into Excel, spend 2 to 3 weeks building it, and then build some charts, and eventually blend it with something else, and then end up back in PowerPoint so they could report to their boss, right? And it was like my dream was dead. I was very disheartened by this, but I started asking questions about that team because they were just down the hall, and how's it going? What are the challenges? And not much had changed. And my boss wisely thought, well, if you're asking questions, you must be excited about this. Why don't you drive it? So I kind of got roped into it, and I'll walk you through the journey of what that was like. So when I took on the role, we had an increased systems complexity. So we were still doing acquisitions. We were beginning the industrial internet, so we were starting to get even more machine data than we'd gotten before. Some of the legacy components that we'd acquired, some of them were built on a database that was originally sold by IBM as part of the Apollo mission in '65. These are realities of a large industrial. So the costs were going up for that glorified ETL engine. Our users were being very, very pushy, right? The speed of the business was increasing, not slowing down. And traditional IT budgets are always being challenged on whether we can get reductions year over year. We were also seeing new diverse data. People were talking about unstructured data at the time. That was kind of new for us. And how do we tap into that? And how much of the data are we not actively even looking at because we're so busy just trying to feed those key data sets to people? So, you know, I kind of defined this era for us as full of hope, but we had a lot of challenge. And then this is what the business was dealing with at the time. Whether we were trying to drive our business outcomes, whether we were trying to help our customers at the power plants, these were big outcomes that we were really trying to make happen for us. We're doing predictive and prescriptive analytics on the markets. We're trying to make power plants run more efficiently. We're trying to save fuel. We're trying to increase uptime, shorten our outages, no unplanned downtime. And you lay that over against another idea where we talk about an APM system, where we have our digital twin, where we instantiate an exact copy of that turbine in the digital world, and we know exactly how that turbine is going to perform. We know how the weather is going to impact that. We know where things are going to end up. So that whole idea of understanding the asset itself and making a digital copy of that is critical to us to get the outcomes that we want to deliver for each customer. And then you lay that across the foundations that our Predix IoT platform is pillar and foundational to this. Our advanced control systems that drive the turbine so that when we notice something's wrong, we can take action to resolve that and optimize it. And then there's always the looming idea of cyber and cybersecurity. You know, these are important assets in the world. We can't afford to be having them impacted. And it kind of all sums up into a little one-liner from our chairman. Some of you guys might not be able to see it at the bottom, so I'll read it to you. But if you went to bed last night as an industrial company, you're going to wake up tomorrow as a software and analytics company. And you know, I think that kind of rings true for a lot of people. So faced with those challenges, full of hope, and the business under a massive, massive push to the digital industrial, we went out and tried to understand what's possible anymore, right? People were talking about you could tap into that unused dark data. You could get into data sets you couldn't get into before. You know, we kind of snickered and we're like, yeah, sure, we can't even get the structured data in the people's hands, right? So how are we going to get to that? The idea of there's a way to kind of let go of that central control, that we'd have to change the way we operated and the way that we ran BI. The cost per report was going to go down, not up. So how are you going to run all of these things and live up to all these promises and still be way cheaper than we were? And our cycle time, we were really frustrated by our cycle time. To deliver a new report through our centralized model, it was taking 6 weeks, and half the time we got it wrong. So then they had to wait another 6 weeks. And then if you take that again and realize half of those were probably wrong, it's another 6 weeks for that poor team. So there were people that were stuck in these loops, and they were changing their target while we were delivering. So this idea of reduced development cycle time to produce was really attractive to us. And our diverse data sets for scale. So getting into that IoT data, how do we tackle something that large? How do we address that kind of a concern when we look at the number of assets and the number of sensors increasing, our ability to sample that data at a higher and higher frequency? So we have mountains of data coming at us, and we knew it was coming. But everybody had promised, oh, this will work. So instead of talking about the technology and saying, okay, is this even possible, we decided to try a new approach. How many times had we run at this problem before? How many times had a vendor sold us a software and said, hey, this will solve these 1 or 2 CTQs for you and make your life better? We said, let's think about this. We can't run at this as an IT problem. This isn't an IT problem. This is a social problem. This is a relationship problem. This is a commitment from everybody. And this here is if you're going to take nothing away from lessons learned from us, this is probably the most important thing you need to probably appreciate and maybe had been underappreciated. Because when we had the functional people take ownership, we always thought that they didn't even want to get into this. But they were into it. They were doing 90% of the work once they got it into Excel. So they were doing that and recognizing that and accepting that as an improved behavior. We were just starting into data science at the time. We'd always been doing predictive and prescriptive analytics and turbines. We've been doing it through our monitoring and diagnostic systems for years. But officially making data science, now it could scale, right? With the new languages, the new platforms, the new capabilities. So data science was exploding at the time. So we wanted them as a seat at the table. And then the IT people, they needed to stop being such IT people. They needed to start being a little better business people. And then once we came together as a team, we finally got the executives on board. They saw that we were coming together and that they got behind us and they sponsored us. It didn't really take all that much money at first. That's really not what we went to them for. We just needed their leadership and support to get behind this and help us push through this change. So if you're interested, here is our tech stack. Very detailed. So the way we got to this was we started small. We went through a market survey and we tried to figure out who was out there. And we ran 2 or 3 versions of everything. During the pilot, we had, I think, 7 different distributions and environments that we were playing with, and would take them apart and put them together and rapidly kind of prototype what was working well for us, what wasn't working well for us. But it wasn't just about technology. A lot of companies can do a certain feature that other companies can do. We really wanted to make sure that we had a relationship with these companies. They just didn't sell us software and walk away. Companies that we work with have to kind of be in there with us. They have to have a stake in the game. So you probably question yourself, how do you get a big company to, like Tableau to recognize you and appreciate you? I think giving speeches is a way that might help them feel a little pressure that if they're doing well, you're going to say so, and if they're not, you might not be there anymore. And then that leads us into the third point: is we do treat this as an all-star team. It's a privilege to be on the all-star team. Not everybody's going to be on it, and somebody big can come up behind you and take your spot at any time. That is a discussion about technical debt, a topic probably familiar to most of you guys. So we require the technical debt to be low enough to replace any technology in under a quarter. That's really is going to drive a lot of your software vendors nuts, because you're never going to use a feature that's very, very specific or tied into them. We have to keep it extremely light, keep it focused on the thing. If your job is to do X, we only let you do X. You might say, I can do Y and Z and other things. We don't need that, because we want to be able to quickly tack and go in a new direction. So these are the folks that are currently on the All-Star team, and they remain there for now, and hopefully they continue to deliver, and we'll continue to keep them in the tech stack. So this is a little bit more for under the covers on how we did this. We'll start on the right side, or your left side. We're going to talk about business outcomes. Whenever we got together with these teams, we never talked about server capacities. We don't talk about number of cores. We talk about what is it we're trying to achieve, whether it's a revenue, a cost out, a new analytic that we're trying to deliver, a market we're trying to disrupt or enter into. You have to have your IT people with a seat at the table talking about those business outcomes. The data scientists need to understand how what they're doing is connected to something real in the real world. So because we start with the business outcomes, the team can really understand how to apply data. Now, not everything is going to be about Tableau, so sometimes we do the data science interactivity. That'll be with Tableau. It's also with a number of different data engines, analytic engines, scripting languages. Sometimes it's command line, sometimes it's visual. But that ability to hammer on the data in production is a valid use case and behavior. It's not QA because they're not using QA data. I want them using real data in production all the time, so you need to have capacity dedicated to those users so they can do their jobs. Subsets don't work. They like hitting, you can say, I'll give you a sample, they don't care. They want to see the full data set and they want to hammer on it in real time. So that is a production behavior that we support. The second one there is our applications as a service. Once we have an analytic, once we have a behavior identified or an outcome that we want to drive, we want to operationalize that software. So that analytic could go end up into our IoT application platform. Whether or not we're pulling that visualization through or just the logic of it that can get invoked. So that once they get that tied off, that analytic can be in Predix. But the information as a service is really what we used to call BI. We changed its name for a while because people, sometimes they get a name in their head and they think of it as the old way to do it. Simply rebranding that went us a long way to understand that this is something different. We recognize it's something different. And so again, that's a nice little takeaway. Even if it returns back to the name of BI, at least for a while they could tell what was the difference between the two different platforms. And then the way we dealt with the data, our data consumption or our semantic layer is based for humans. It is written by the business. It is not written by IT. They dictate what those data sets look like, what's in there, and what the names are called. But we do have rules and governance to say that you can't have two things with two different names. And a lot of times the business people would fight if it's called turbine number or serial number or ID number. That's not an IT fight. Stay out of it. Let them fight that out on the business side. Once they get a name, then they can go to production. They have to standardize all of their lexicon. So that data consumption layer is for humans. We do it in first normal form, and we're allowed data duplication at that layer because it's about the data set for the business. So there's a finance data set, a PO data set, an AP data set. And you're going to find it's kind of like mixing cocktails. That same data is going to appear in different spots in different amounts or different aggregate levels. And we think that that's okay. At the other side of it is IT's job, which is we bring up from the bottom all of our different data sets, a little sample there to kind of give you an idea, and that we mirror those in real time in full data set. And those then become an IT problem of, now you're a bartender, how do you mix the cocktails to make those data sets? IT's good at that. So just drive those ETLs, work backwards from what the business wanted, then at the bottom, figure out how to fill those up. It's very simple, it's 2 layers, it goes pretty fast. And the bottom layer, humans are not allowed down there, except for data scientists. And that could open a debate of, is a data science a human or not? But that's a fun debate. And then on the right side is what I would also say is something very, very important. If you focus on the business outcomes like we talked about on the left, what you're going to see on the right here is that if we do have that business outcome identified and they have it built and they're running it on Excel, put it in production. It's going to run horrible. So that's okay, because if you found some new sales channel or you found some new lead or you found something important, go ahead and put it in production, drive the business outcomes. The report might take 3 minutes to load. That's okay. If it's valuable to them, they will wait. If it's not valuable to them, they won't wait. So you're going to know that pretty fast. And if they're not valuable to them, stop investing in it. Then once that's wired up and it's in production, we don't ever change that report again. But IT does have the permission now to completely rip that out, understand how you did the Excel, find all your macros, reverse engineer it, and connect you to a live database. They don't have to ask you for an outage. That is not a debate. If the data matches, you're going to a database. Once we get you onto a database, then we want to move you to an extract. We want to cache it, and we want to get that for performance reasons. We do like caching all of our reports into our extract layer. We typically don't run with live. We did it for a while. It's not that it's not it's perfectly a technical capability we could do, but we realized that our cycle time of real time in reporting to the IT back office people was faster than the cycle times of the source systems. So sometimes when you're running 9 ERPs, a transaction might move between them. And as it's moving between them, it doesn't settle down. And eventually the cycle time will end, and now we can pull that data. If I would have written you the report while that was moving, sometimes you're going to see that same transaction and it show up in 3 different places at the same time. then all the data's wrong and all the numbers are wrong, and they yell at you like you're like it's your fault. And you're like, no, that's just the nature of the system. And then now we're not talking about business outcomes, and you've lost the argument. So know the business cycle time, know the nature of that data, know how fast it runs, know how it updates. If you understand its behavior and the human behavior, simply set the cycle time of the system to refresh the cache based off the business. They're going to say real time every time, I promise you. That's not what they mean. You have to understand that. What they mean by real time is the right time. The second that transaction has settled, that's when I want to see it immediately. They don't want to, once it's the right time, don't have a lag. So just know that that's what they meant and just accept that. So move up the maturity curve. And with this, another way to talk about the maturity curve is once you move up to the top, we start looking at the quality of how they design the report. Early forms of the report, you're going to see things like Excel on the web. You're going to see like 50 different drop downs every way they could want to see it. And we have 10 rules of making Tableau fast. If you adhere to them, we can make any size data set we have in the company run in under 3 seconds globally. If you violate them, you've made a conscious decision, performance versus capability. That is not a ticket. That was a choice. And we can point back to the document and say why you chose to do that. They'll still argue. That'll still happen. But that maturity and getting them up to a better outcome of a report is fine. And then if they refuse to do it, it's probably a sign that they still want to use their Excel sheet. And let's go ahead and bless that behavior. And when we went, if we look back at how I was showing you that some people just want data as a service, that's a fine behavior. If you want your Excel sheet still, I'm not here to force you to change it. I will pump more data at you than you can handle, and you can do it all day long, and all of your peers at work will pass you by. And you will be very antiquated very fast. Because if we give you the data, that's fine. You can go ahead and do that. Take 2 weeks, build your chart. The other guy's done in 3 seconds. So you're going to find people come around on this topic, some faster than others. Different departments, different behaviors will be faster than others. So who wants to see my growth curve? This, we don't have the data from 2012 because we were on a different set of servers at the time. We did lose that, which kind of is embarrassing, but I'll publicly admit we make mistakes. So I don't have the data from 2012. That first one in 13 was just during a transition month. But you can imagine what that chart looks like. I didn't animate it because I thought that might be kind of annoying. But if you think about what it was like in our world for that first year from 13 to 14, that's a pretty steep growth curve. Right? Look at the percentage growth right there. How do you keep up with that kind of scale? And you just do that year over year, and if you keep moving that over, it starts getting really uncomfortable really fast. That's a growth curve that hurts. This is our number of views per month. The other thing you're going to notice here is we've never went down. And that's not, it's not cumulative. This is a per month run. And so we're seeing massive value in the system here. When we did this, the first time we went live on our first system was at a project level, not a program level. It wasn't a big play. It was put our toe in the water. But because we had leadership buy-in, we did not deploy a traditional BI system. We actually went for it. It was a smaller project, admittedly. It was an ERP. Not a lot of ERP people in the room today. ERPs are not small systems. So when we launched that first time, we did replace our first BI system with that. And over time, most of it's been pretty organic growth. And as the usage spikes on this, the usage on the other plummets. You have 2 ways to do it. They like this one better. We turn off the old system and we retire it. So we've been doing lots and lots of retirements. We've killed everything. The use case and behaviors, our data warehouses is the most obvious one. We no longer warehouse data. We do store it, but warehousing gives us a connotation that it's just there for gathering dust. We're not here to stockpile data. If it exists and if it's valuable, there's got to be something in there that we can tease out. There's a behavior, there's a usage, there's something in there. So let's make sure all of our data is active and being mined. Object data stores, again, because of the way that we're doing our transition here, we're doing our our distillation between raw data and valuable data, when it became business data. That whole concept there means that the ODS and pulling your data off of this, we could retire the old ODSs. And then the BI reporting. Again, I can tell you that GE is large and we're an acquisitions business, which means at some point I have owned anything you've ever heard of. And small companies, big companies, we've seen them all. And that we do consolidate. We're always under a consolidation, trying to get down to one. But also you can see there an unnatural spike at the beginning. I showed you the video of the acquisition from Alstom, which was our largest European competitor. That's that spike you see there about a year ago. We doubled in size and headcount in one day. This, I think, tells a good story. In our old BI world, we used to use 25% as entitlement. If we could get a quarter of the users in any department to actually run a report without somebody coming and saying, I'll run it for you, or hiring a contractor to run reports for a person, 25% was awesome, right? You had at least somebody in that department that was actively using the system. You can see that about 3/4 of them are about at or above 25% entitlement. So that feels good. We do have the new baseline there. We're trying to actually target and reach to 50% for most departments. And at the very top there, you can notice that we actually have one department running at 100%. So everybody in that team all the way to the top actively uses the system continuously. This is just as of last month. This isn't if they've ever logged in. We reset it every month. So this is active usage, and this is how we know that they're getting value. Because once you hit a certain size and a certain scale in the system, they stop bringing you these awesome stories of, hey, did you hear I found some kind of inventory analytic. They just that becomes normal to them. And they stop bringing you stories. So the only way to know if you're actually getting benefit from this is actually to spy on them and look at do your BI on BI. So if they didn't like it, they wouldn't be using it. Nobody is forcing them to use the system. This is just a natural behavior from the business. And then we also saw some weird things here. A number of contractors, when the business went down, wonder what they used to do for a living. Very curious, right? And another odd thing was server versions of operating systems that were no longer in server rooms. Those numbers also plummeted. Very strange why we had servers not in the server room, right? So those did disappear. So the network people can pull this kind of data for you. It's kind of fun to watch this kind of stuff happen. That we really did change the culture and the way things were happening. Another good lesson learned here. We did offer about every year. We'll offer about 10 free Tableau training classes, and we rotate it by site. Get about 15, 20 people in a class. IT just eats it in the budget just because it's a nice thing to do. And we try to train and get pockets of people fully certified all the way up to the top. Takes a couple days. It's worth the investment. We've never not sold out a class. And usually classes will sell out in about the first day. We'll just say, hey, we're coming to your site. We'll offer it in local language. Would you like to take some training? People will just flood in the room. So again, we're probably underdoing it, but I think it's good to constantly be seeding that kind of stuff in there. We have lots of internal help pages as well for it, and then the free online training is always a good thing for people to participate in. But we also try to end the course with an extra day on just our data sets. So they learn how to use the tool, then we get them connected to our data sets, and it becomes real for them. They could build something or find something that nobody else has found. Little closing remarks here. A little bit of borrowing from Star Wars. Stay on target. Again, focus on those business outcomes. That's all that really matters in the end. It's not number of servers. It's not cost per report. In the end, it's how much did we actually change our company? How much did we actually achieve? Because if we're achieving business outcomes, the leadership will get it behind us every single day. It is the Rebel Alliance. You do have to create that team. You do have to get the business people and IT people to become friends. It's a weird feeling. And invite your new friends from data science to join the party. Focus. Don't get distracted thinking I'm going to go do everything. Just find a single business outcome or a single analytic or a single place. Make that thing work really, really well. You're going to get people banging on the door saying they want to participate constantly as you're doing that. Send them away, focus, get that one outcome. If you try to diversify too much out of the gate, it's going to ruin you. You're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to swamp the boat, and it's not going to work. So focus on those really important things first, and then scale, and then double, then double, then double. And as the leadership sees how things are going and the outcomes are mounting and everything's going great, they'll continue to invest, and then you can keep expanding on what's important, the business outcomes, in priority order of how much outcome we're going to get out of that. And eventually you end up catching on. And then the fourth thing there, which is the scary part, is the jump to light speed. You're going to feel like you're pushing at first. You're going to feel like you're always trying to make something happen that nobody else wants to have happen at first. And eventually it takes off. And it's uncomfortable. It's really, really uncomfortable. You saw our growth curves there, tripling month over month for a while. That kind of growth is scary. And how do we keep up with that? And how do we address that? But it's a fun part of the project. That's probably the most exciting. That's probably the most rewarding portion of your project, is when it catches on. And people actually like what IT is doing. It's very uncomfortable. It's a new feeling for a lot of people that you're not being annoyed. you're there because they want you at the table. They're never going to make the jump to a digital without an IT person being a partner. IT should not view the business as a customer. You should view them as a partner, and they need to view you as a partner. And if you're both working together towards the outcome, you're now partners. You need a seat at the table. You need to be relevant. With that, please don't make fun of my presentation skills. So we've got about 10 minutes left. If anybody does have questions relative to this, I can usually answer it, but if it's not my domain, I will tell you it's not my domain. Yeah, we'll start in the front row.
You described your Tableau architecture, even how many functions you can use?
Oh, you want the number of users?
No, the architecture itself. What's your Tableau? How many servers are you
Okay.
using?
Yeah. Sure. So we run, I'm trying to remember here what the latest is. I think we run with about 16 cores in the visualization, and the rest are dedicated towards extracts. And I think we've got about another 16 dedicated to just keeping the extracts running. Oh, we keep it on premise right now. Yeah. But it's virtual. Yeah,
How do you handle data quality from source systems and transactions? What role does the business play versus IT play?
Oh, sure. And so the question came up about data quality and data management. That's a good lesson learned I probably should include in this if I was ever to give it again, which is at a certain point, when you hit a certain scale level, you're going to recognize that big data becomes hard to control. There's so much data in there, and keeping track of it is very difficult. So you have to start doing things with your metadata, and you start having to invest in those kinds of products and data lineage. And then once that's there, you need a team of people to actually use that. So then we start growing into a data management team. So you're going to know at some point when you're stressing that scale, that jump to light speed, you're going to feel a stress that you can't keep up, or you feel like you're making a mess of the data. That's the day you need a data management team. And they need leadership to understand that if you don't have good data management, your big data will fail. It'll become unusable. So we started off with about 3 people doing data management part-time at about halfway through our growth. And that team now is a fully mature organization. They report to data science. And it's a practice that we all very much understand and appreciate. And now we also have a chief data officer. So that whole area has grown up and matured because it solved a need.
Okay, so your data management reports to data science and to chief data officer. So it's a dedicated data organization.
Mhm.
partner with.
You're right, and we don't treat them, even though organizationally we had to put them somewhere, they're not IT people.
Right.
They're also not business people. They're both. And they need to report somewhere, true, but knowing that they need to be independent of both parties, and that's a perfectly rational idea, that this is now a pillar application for us. This is a core platform of a digital company. It's as important as all of the other pillar applications. And so you do need a staff, and you do need to have that kind of investment in your data. Because if you don't, then you're going to lose control of your data, and your data is going to turn bad. And when your data turns bad, your decisions become bad. You don't want to be making bad decisions, because this is an important thing to people. Blue, you've been.
So I don't know that I really believe in this, but just for like devil's advocate, what do you say to one version of the truth? That one has their data cocktail, does that mean that executives can get a headache, this report versus this report?
Yep, exactly. So the question really comes around, if we have different data sets and they both contain some data that would overlap, right? So the same data source could end up in two reports, and then the numbers could go up to the boss. And so that's really the job of the data management team. They have full authority to go through there and change things in production. They're responsible for the data and the data quality. If they notice something happening differently and the reports are coming off differently, let's say a business person made a report, they didn't really understand a Fourier transform, they implemented it wrong. But their numbers coming out to the top of the boss, right? We need to find those kind of situations. They're actively monitoring. They don't wait for tickets. And they go and groom all of the data continuously. So we'll look at data sets, and we'll look at how they were formed, and we actually go into the calculations and we verify things, and then we actually certify them. So we have data categorizations. So you have data that's never been checked, and it's very well noted that that data's never been checked. We have data that has come from an approved system, medium, and then we have data that has been actively verified and certified by data practitioners. That three categorizations, and making sure the business is aware that this report was built with data from one, two, or all three of these systems, goes to the quality of that report. So you have, there's lots of names for that kind of stuff, but the idea that it does have a certain level of quality, that it has been certified or verified by a person who knows what they're talking about, not just the guy who writes it, that idea is paramount to your data management team. Yeah, but it's going to happen, right? So you got to just address it. It's an active, there's no goal, there's no end. The fact that you cleaned all your data, that's great, but now it's degrading. So it's just like your house, it requires quarterly cleaning. Yeah.
Question, can you elaborate on the self-service part of it? You mentioned, you do quarterly or, every year a training. Mm-hmm. Was that the starting point, or how do you push that massive self-service at scale?
Yeah, sure. So the idea that anybody can build a report or anybody can get a license is definitely what we believe in. So if the business wants to get a license, IT didn't buy any licenses for them. They had to actually say, I want to participate in this, I'm going to go buy a license. Once they have the license, then they have a bit of ownership in this, right? And we'll connect them directly to the data sets through what's approved. Obviously, security-wise, we don't want certain things going to certain people. So if the data stewards approve your access to their data sets, go for it. And then you can build something, enrich something yourself, and use it. Nobody is forced to write a report that I know of, but you see the usage. And you see that we've grown up from our original investment of 25 developer licenses, we're now over 700, and I haven't bought any since then. So somebody's been buying them. and the number of reports getting published to production is just astronomical. So we do have to also clean up the reports where we see reports with two different things that are the exact same thing, or something that hasn't run. So you actually have to groom the self-service. The problem with everybody being able to build something is everybody builds something. And you might want to check and make sure something's actually run, or is the data still connected to something? That kind of stuff, that active grooming is also part of data management.
Good presentation, thank you. You mentioned that start small and grow organically.
Mm-hmm.
what was your strategy, if you look back, one or two strategies that you took to grow the BI across different regions within GE? I mean, it's great to come up with some idea and make a case, but you have to also advertise and market it across different regions. And so what strategies you took?
Yeah, sure. So every time when we started small, we had a direct business outcome. Let's make one up for a second, that they wanted to reduce inventory in a warehouse. Okay, that's pretty simple, right? Everybody can handle that. So we just put inventory by product, by location, and match it by demand. We would try to get what was the outcome. So that they have their hypothesis, they test it, they verify it. After about a month, we see is it actually producing the outcome we wanted. We measure that, we try to get the business value to that, then we turn that into a nice story, right? And we then market the fact that somebody has done something impactful. We like to give out a lot of awards to people. It's kind of like, what do they talk about in animal training, right? You always want to give positive rewards. So we give lots of herring to the dolphins, right? So whenever somebody does something really great, you want to reward them, you want to note it, you want to put it on the internal awards boards, good stories from people, and then we do like to give out gift cards to people. So, on a personal level, you'll know you'll have been rewarded for doing something awesome. Publicly, then we give you an award to make sure that everybody is rewarded. And then after a while, folks realize that, hey, that team did something really cool. I've got a warehouse. and so how can I use their dashboard and connect it to my data set? And how do I leverage what they've done before? And then we have a lot of internal places where we share stories of successes. We also share capabilities, and so reuse is a big thing for us. So we do share that. We have a whole place that just talks about success stories. And it doesn't have to be just this technology. We do it across all of our technologies. We call it our digital exchange. And we highlight wins and then put people's names on it that worked on it. Reach out to them, ask them a question. Here's their code, take it, make it better, and even give it back to them if you find out an even better way to do something. So that kind of collaboration and the social aspect of it is really big for us. People like sharing, they do. Yeah.
Great presentation again. I think it's, having done this for 4 years, I have a two-part question here. You think you're done with the cocktails of published data sources, or are you still making cocktails every day? And what that timeline looks like for an ETL that a new data request comes from the business? And then the second question is the 3-second response time. Is that something we aspire for with a Hadoop backend and a live connection in our environment?
Yeah.
Is that how you went about doing it, or you've allowed all kinds of crazy connections to the Tableau server?
Well, we allow all sorts of crazy things at first, and then it's the IT person's job to now make it fast, right? And then if they don't adopt the best practices, again, we'll let it be not 3 seconds if they choose that. But we do allow any kind of crazy connection at first, and then let's say it's running very poorly and they connect it to a Hadoop system that just isn't performing for them, right? You're overwhelming somebody. So what we then do is we find that kind of an example, and we'll say, are they blending data? Blending's not as fast as an already joined data set, or that's not as fast as just a single table hit, right? So if you understand that that's what their demand is, make a new data set. We recognize maybe these two things together. We got 6 people going across these same things. That's it. Understand them, talk to them, and then partner with them to say, I'm going to make your report faster because I'm just going to create you a data set just for your new weird initiative, right? So there could be an initiative that comes up that has a new demand. That's cool. Okay. Let's put you in production. Then we're going to make it fast, one way or another.
Sorry, just follow. Do you have a service level on that new data set? Is it like a day, a week, 3 weeks, 6 weeks?
Depends on how complex it is, but there's no wait time. I mean, if it's important to the business, we work. There's no, it's not like a 10 to 2 kind of an office, right? So we're there until something runs. Okay. I mean, that's important to us. So we're going to work hard. If it's valuable to us, we'll invest our personal time in it. I've seen people do lots and lots of work over weekends before because we wanted to really hit a new go live or something. So the data management team, again, tying to the outcomes also means sometimes you're going to have a Wednesday off because we don't have demand that day, and that's okay. You worked all weekend, you know, take a break. You know, we're not here to kill the employees, but we're here to drive outcomes. That's what we're here for. We're not here to make sure a server's blinking either, and that's not a success for us.
Cool. We are out of time, unfortunately. Let's give a big hand to our speaker today for the awesome presentation. Thank you.